Hey, we want to welcome you out. We're going to talk tonight about what's new at the BYU Family History Technology Lab, which is something some of you may have never even heard of. And so this will be kind of fun. You're going to get to see something that's maybe a little bit different. Many of you have seen at least one product from there, but you're going to find out there's a lot more there than just um, the one that you'll know. So essentially, why are we doing this? Because, hey, you have different strokes for different folks. There's things here that you won't find anywhere else. There may be something here that will either excite you or one of your patrons in a way that nothing else can. And so it's kind of nice to see some different applications of family search. There's new tools here that involve researching. There's new ways to explore your tree, and then there's just fun stuff, fun things that you can use with your family or your patrons can use with their families. So we'll start off with the research side. And there's, like I say here, something new, something old. The programs are all related one way or the other to researching, and in one way or another to your tree. And so we'll review each one in turn, starting with the one that we probably all know about, Relative Finder. This is the most popular thing that the BYU Technology Lab has. It's been around for a long time, and I think most of us are fairly familiar with it. What it essentially will do is it'll trace back in your tree 16 generations, looking for links coming down or in your direct line to famous people, either LDS leaders or presidents of the United States, scientists, writers, entertainment personalities, sports personalities, all kinds of things. And you can actually even create your own groups to see who's related to whom. So how exactly does this work? Well, first thing you do is you click where it says go to Relative Finder. And like most everything at this website, you will have to sign in to your FamilySearch account each time you go to one of these activities. And that's because that's how they can get access to your records so that they can do these fun things with you. So you sign in. And if you haven't signed in for a long time, or if this is your first time to sign in, the program has to literally build your tree. And it can take a little while. If you have quite a large tree, and remember, this is going back 16 generations on your ancestry, it can take a little while for it to gather all that and then store it away for you so that the next time you come, you can use it again. Now, if you don't come back in 6 months or so, it'll have to rebuild your tree because it knows that things change. So that's one time there'll be a little bit of a pause. And now once it's loaded, you can start looking for relatives. And so the screen will look something like this. And there's a bunch of built-in categories. They have a video. I've got the little mark there for it to have a video for you to watch to see how the system works. This would be good for somebody you're presenting this to. Tell them to take a look at that and they'll get a better understanding of the program from the get-go. Okay, so they have these built-in groups that everybody gets connected to automatically. So in this case, I clicked on authors and poets, and I'll pick Noah Webster to be my person to check out. Noah Webster's the guy that wrote the dictionary, Webster's Dictionary. Okay, and he's my third cousin, 7 times removed. And of course, all of this is based on how good the tree is at FamilySearch. So if it's not well researched, this won't be very accurate. So you have to kind of watch out for that. Okay, now, besides these built-in groups, there could be groups that you own, but that means that you created a group. If you create it, you're the owner. You could also be a group member for other people's groups. And so there's a way to find those groups quickly. And you can also mark certain groups, whatever groups you want to be your favorites, so you don't have to hunt around for them. So there is some filtering that can be done for groups. Okay, that's just the bottom part of this group filters column. So now, this is how it will work. I said I wanted to see about Noah Webster. Well, there's Noah up there. And what I get is I get a partial pedigree. And I'm in the left-hand column at the very bottom, halfway off the screen. That's me way down there. And then this goes back through my ancestry to my ancestor, Catherine Chapin, who married Nathaniel Bliss. Now, Catherine was married twice. She also married a Mansfield. And that would be after Nathaniel Bliss died. And she had some kids by Mansfield because Noah Webster was her great-great-grandson. And if you're wondering how he gets to be my third cousin 7 times removed, if we start with the common ancestor, these people are siblings, first cousins, second cousins, third cousins. So he's a third cousin to Mary and Thomas Anderson. And then there's 7 more generations to get down to me. So he's a third cousin 7 times removed. And so that's kind of how you work the chart in case you're wondering. Okay, now I want to talk about, you can have your own groups. In fact, for those of you that are here in Fresno, in the 4 Fresno stakes, each of our stakes has a group. Now, I don't know about the other stakes, but I know the Fresno stakes have their own groups. And I know the one I'm in, North Stake, has over 500 members. So it's kind of fun to get to see how all the people are related. It can be a fun activity to bring the youth in and have them join up. Now, how do you get to these groups? What you need to do is you got to go up to where it says groups and you click on it and there'll be a drop down and you click on find. And then you just click the word Fresno if you're looking for our Fresno groups. If you were looking for Hanford to see if they have a group, you type Hanford. And so on the Fresno list, you're going to see a long list of them because many of our stakes have 2 or 3 different groups because a couple of people have tried to create a group and they only have 2 or 3 members. And then there'll be a large group that has over 100, or like in our case, over 500. So you find the group you want, you click on it, and it's going to ask you for the password. I shouldn't be giving these out, but I'm going to. And that is that for the most of the Fresno stakes, it's the street the stake center's on. Okay, I won't say the names of the streets, but you guys know what streets your stake center's on. That's the password. For North Stake, because I already had mine set up and I didn't know they were going to all do that the day we created these, ours happens to be 1234 for the password. But you put that in, then you become part of the group. Then when you go to groups, you can come over here to groups. In my case, it's owned groups. You would go to member, ones that you're a member of, and click the name of the group, and you'll be able to see the people in that group that are your relatives. And so it works out real good. Now, the one disclaimer, folks, if you're not in our 4 groups, our 4 stakes in Fresno, don't join our groups, please. It's not really intended to be that way. You could start another group if you want and invite some of us to come join it if you want. But, you know, people from our stake should be the ones joining our stake groups. You guys can create your own. But it's kind of cool. I've got my daughter Mary's in here, a good friend Alan Croft, who now lives in Utah, is my third cousin. Judson Myers, who's on our high council, is my third cousin, one time removed. The one thing you may have trouble with is like Jill Vick and Kelly Davis. I believe those are their maiden names. And if those are their maiden names, I may not know who they are because I need to know who their married name is because that's what I know them by. Sometimes it's so obvious I can tell. But in many cases, it's, it's like, who in the heck is this person? Because for most women, they're going to show up in here under their maiden name. Now, some will show up with their married name, but in many cases, they're going to show up with their maiden names. So that's about the only drawback. Okay, and of course, if somebody's in the group and they don't show up on this list, it's because you're not related, according to FamilySearch. And it could be as simple as somebody's got a glitch in their tree. Okay, another feature they have here is called reverse indexing. And it's exactly what it says. We all know what indexing is like. You look at what's on the screen and you put it into the system. In this case, they're going to provide you with names, many times several names. In this case, just one. But they're going to say, okay, this is the name I'm looking for. I want you to look at this and tell me if they're the same thing. If they're not the same thing and it's incorrect, then you're going to mark it as incorrect. And if there were a bunch of them on there, I'd go around and click on these and they would get rings around them for the ones that are incorrect. And then when I'm all done, I would click submit. Well, in this case, there's only one thing there. And so I'm looking for Lobit, and it looks like it's Lobetti or something like that. So I'm just going to say they're all incorrect. And if you don't know, you just leave everything alone and just click submit, and they'll give it to somebody else to look at and verify that everything was correct or that you didn't know what you were doing. They'll have other people check it. More than one does it. This is a form of AI verification. That's what's going on here. Teaching the computer how good a job it's doing of identifying words. Now, here's an example that had more than one. Okay, this has got the word enchilada, enricheta, and it looks like they're all correct. And so I wouldn't mark any of them as wrong. I would just click submit and turn it in that way because they all seem to match the word that's up there. And you can notice here that I can change things. I can verify birthplaces or cause of death or surname or look for English words, or they happened to have it when I took the screenshot, the Iowa 1915 high school census, and you could have done stuff off of there or from newspapers. So you can kind of pick the kind of thing you want. If handwriting isn't your thing, go with newspapers. Okay, so that's reverse indexing. Indexing Go is kind of like get involved, except it's a little bit different in that it'll give you single words. Like in this case, you've got Porter, and you're going to be asked to type what you see appear in this box. And then if you're happy with that, you'll just click this little check mark and it'll take you to the next one. And you can do these just real quick. It's a lot like Get Involved. They go through real fast. You can also say it's not readable, or it's blank, or it's crossed out, or it's incomplete, or there's a segmentation error, which I think would mean that it cut it off the word in the middle or something, or other. So you have several options of what you can click on. And again, don't worry about it. If you don't know, just click skip and they'll send it off to somebody else to check until they've had multiple people look at each thing. But just a simple little thing that anybody can do that has access to the website. Okay, Map App is a little bit confusing because it's not really a map app as such. It's really a tool for recording and record hints by location and surname. And so when you go to it, you're going to be able to choose your difficulty level, and then you pick like a location and a surname. And so you can pick like a country, or you can pick a state. You can try picking a city within a state, but they won't always have hints for every place. And so what I do is I usually stick to states. And so when you first click on there, it'll give you under those options different things, like you could do Spain, but I would assume you'd need to know how to read Spanish if you're going to look at the actual source. Or you can do TEH, which I like, which is tree extending hints. It's hints that will add new people to tree. And so that's what I had picked on here. Okay, and there's other projects if you scroll down through it. So I picked my favorite surname, Sands, and the state of Pennsylvania, and I got 4 little drop-down pins that showed up in Pennsylvania, 3 of them in Philadelphia and 1 up in Bucks County. And so I clicked on the one in Bucks County, and it's going to give me a hint to process. And so when I click on it, it takes me over to our hint processing program. And in this case, we've got a family where the person that is the main person on this is Marie Sands, and she's already in tree. And she's in tree as the daughter of a Margaret Sands and Herbert Sands. Well, this is the 1930 census, and she shows up with Herbert, and Margaret is their parents, and then there's Marie. And so we're going to use Source Linker, and we're going to do the comparison and then save them. What was interesting, of course, the parents are already there, was that there were 2 other sisters in the family on the 1930 census. So I pulled back for a minute and did a little bit of looking. I found Dad's Find a Grave, I think is what it was. And down there it was listed children's Find a Grave memorials in Florence and Elsie were both listed with their burial records. So they're both deceased. And so I was able to go ahead and add them in as deceased people. So they'll actually show up. And of course, these people, the kids are all inside the 110-year rule, but that's okay. Family will come along eventually and see it, or as time passes on, they'll pass beyond the 110-year rule, and somebody else will be able to do their work. And so that's kind of how it works. Now, I've learned one thing about this particular program. You have to really watch it and be careful. I actually do a lot of backup checking because oftentimes they'll give you something that looks good, but it really isn't. And so beware, be careful. There's been a lot of talk about the quality of their suggestions on these because they always give you a suggestion. Okay, and there's Family Search Enhancements. Now that's not an actual program that's in the BYU labs, but what it is an opportunity to go and sign up. You'll see inside the yellow box there an option to sign up. And then as they do certain enhancements, which are kind of like the lab experiments at Family Search, they'll send you a notice and saying, would you like to check out and test this or that? And you'll get a chance to do it and be on the ground floor for something that may get promoted up to Family Search and become a part of the Family Search program eventually. But this is one where there's no actual program here in labs you can do. It's just a helping, testing sign up location. Okay, in the play section, there's all kinds of fun games. And we'll start out with the first one there, which is Ancestor Games, which has a whole series of simple little things that can be used with anybody in the family. And a lot of them you could just print out and use, like they have a word search. It'll take your tree, it'll pull out names of people from like the first 5 or 6 generations, and then you have to find them in the word search. It will time you. And the way you would do it is when you find a name, you click on the first letter and the last letter, and it fills it in for you if it is in fact one of the names. And you have X amount of time to find them. Or you could just print them out and pass it out to people and let them all do the search. But that's one of the games. They also have word scramble, which is the same type of thing. It's timed. In this case, they give you the letters for the names, and you just have to go through and unscramble them and see how much time it takes you to do it. And if you do it wrong, like I hit a wrong letter on this one, you get an X, so you don't get credit for it. Okay, then they have the game Geneopardy, which is just like Jeopardy. And after you sign in, it's going to go into your tree and it's going to search for dates, places, people, facts, and other pieces of information going back, like, say, 5 or 6 generations. If you've got non-genealogists playing this or kids, you might want to allow them a certain amount of time to look at your pedigree chart to try to find the answer. Like say, okay, you have 2 minutes to search before you have to make a guess. But it works just like Jeopardy. You're going to say places for 200 or people for 500. And so at the beginning of each game, you're going to be able to set the generations. You can actually set the ID for a deceased person. If you don't want it to be you, which is a living person, you could say you want it to be, your grandfather or your mother or whatever for the starting person, as long as they're deceased. And you can have as many teams as you want. In this case, I just had one. So I set it up 5 generations with one team. And as you do the knit boxes, they'll either have a green dot put in them if you got the right answer, or a black dot in there if they're a wrong answer. And the way the questions look when you click on them is I clicked on dates for 400. And it says, which of these people died on December 28th, 1870? And it gives me the names of 4 of my ancestors. Well, I happen to know it was Samuel Hale because that's a very significant death date in our family. And so it just happened to be one I knew off the top of my head. I wouldn't know the other ones without looking them up. But that's kind of what it looks like. And you can do it over and over because it'll keep generating new things each time. Okay, Record Quest is devised for those youth in your family that like to play games on their video machines. This is an actual video game that's going to be interactive, and it's a record quest. You're going to be going through looking for records to solve a genealogical problem. And so it's a great way to teach a beginner a little bit about research and what you need to do when you're researching. So that's a fun little game that the kids would probably enjoy much more than we would. Okay, they have Wheel of Family Fortune, which is just what you think it is. They're going to pick a person out of your tree. They'll give you a hint. This person was born in 1866. You're going to spin the wheel and then call out a letter, pick a letter, and you'll get points if you get it right. So this is set up by default for 4 people. And when I finished playing it, I figured out it was Catherine Markle. And it says player 2 wins. Now, player 2 has less points than 3, but player 2 is the one that solved the word. And so that's why player 2 became the winner. But you can do this over and over again. Just a fun little game. Who's your daddy? This one's kind of a confusing one a little bit. It's kind of a mixture of 20 questions and Battleship. That's the closest I can come up to it. You're going to play it with a person, and you're going to be playing against them. You're both going to have a group of about 10 ancestors, and you're going to pick one that's going to be your mystery person. The other person's going to try to guess who your mystery person is by asking yes or no questions. And as they do that, they can kind of eliminate some of these other people down here till it gets down to the one that they're trying to find. And then whoever can name the mystery person the other person has becomes the winner. If you guess wrong, you automatically lose. So that's what Who's Your Daddy is. A little bit different, on a little higher level. I could see where this would work good with, teenage kids. They could handle something like this pretty good. You just teach them the basic, strategies of yes or no questions and how you can pare things down, by male or female, when were they born? Were they born before 1850 or were they born after 1850? That kind of thing, until they can guess who it is. Okay. They even have a baby name generator. So if you got somebody in the family who's going to have a baby and they just don't know what to name it, I can guarantee you can give them some names they won't want. They can go to the baby name generator and pull up male names or female names or just any names. You can tell it how long you want the name to be. And you can even come down here under birth range and pick a time period in the pedigree that they'll pull names from. So if you want names from the 1800s, you could do that. That's just a little bit different. Okay, then there's geneographies for the mathematicians. There's some fun things to do here where it's going to talk about females, and in this case, and number of children, and based on the years between 1860 and 1869 in Utah. And so I'm not sure exactly how the numbers work on this one. I would have to go back and recreate this. And every once in a while, the things aren't up. I wasn't able to get to it this time. But it does tell me that Utah had an average of 9 kids in a household in 1860. But you think of all the polygamous families, that would be why. But they're trying to show you by color in general how many kids were found in a household. This is supposed to be the number of children born to females born in Utah from 1860 to 1869. But again, I'm not sure exactly how that works. But they have other types of demographical things that you can look for. And so it's just kind of a statistical thing to play with. Okay, Tree Find is a little feature that will allow you to go through your tree and find people in the first case that would need some sources to help clean up the line, or ancestors with a missing parent. You can identify who those are so you can try working on them, or ancestors with multiple parents, duplicate parents, or cousins with no children, but have a record hint, which might help extend the family. And so you can click on those. They'll generate you a list of people in your tree, and you can go out and work on those. Virtual Pedigree is one that's been around for a while, and it is cool. It's probably the most comprehensive pedigree that you can see on a screen. This works best on a regular computer screen, not on your phone, because you won't be able to see enough. But this can literally show your whole family with a regular pedigree chart, like we're normally familiar with. And it goes on and on and on. You know, in Family Search, how you extend one line, then it truncates the others. This will allow you to extend all the lines and scroll around and see everybody. It's a cool way to see your pedigree. Nice view based on your data and just a different presentation of it. Family Calendar does like one of those things that comes out every Sunday. This will develop a calendar for you for any given month with the things that happened in your family going back to X number of generations. And you can tell, you know, who had birthdays on certain days of the month, or death dates, or christenings, or baptisms, or marriages, or whatever. And so you can see those on a calendar. Tree Sweeper is a program they developed to help you kind of clean up your tree. It's a way it'll analyze your tree, and it'll look for illogical things like people where the wife, the mother was born after the children were born. Or, you know, just all kinds of things that are illogical and need to be fixed. Because it'll go through and analyze and look for things. You know, sometimes they say there's a problem, like they say, you know, so-and-so had a child. So a guy had a child at the age of 63. Well, that could happen. But because that's statistically not normal, it would be marked as, you know, out of logic. Okay, that's the last of the things actually found at the lab. I was presented a couple of things this week. Dina Callahan sent me a invitation to a 5-a-day project, and David Peterson at my Family Search Center sent me a link showing a marriage program where they were doing basically the same thing. This 5-a-day project is found at BYU Record Linking Lab, which I think is just an extension of their Family Search Lab. And the guy that does the video for this did the same one that, was the same guy that did the video for the one that Brother Peterson sent me. And so I know they're all kind of linked together. The church is trying to find ways to encourage us to do things that'll help, especially outside the United States, but even inside the US, to help grow the tree for people coming along behind us. Because sometimes we're happy to do something for somebody else. And 5-a-day is going to give us a chance to process 5 hints a day and help hopefully add some new people into tree who someday will be found by their family. So what you do is you go Google BYU Record Linking Lab. Okay, you go search for this. And when you get it, you click on volunteer. And under volunteer, one of the things there is 5-a-day project. And you click on that, and it's going to ask you to join. You have to get an invite. So they ask you 2 or 3 questions, and then if they accept you the next day, you'll get an email a day on Monday through Friday with 5 record hints to process. If you don't do them, that's fine. It's just, they would like you to do them if you can. The email will look a little bit like that. It's just a short little letter that'll have a family search type quote at the beginning, a different one each day, and then 5 hints to click on. And when you click on them, we're back to our good old source linker. And in this case, it's working off of Numident, the Social Security, basically the Social Security death index thing. And so in this case, it's for Maria Sanchez Vega. And she listed in Numident that her mother was Juana Sanchez and her dad was Daniel Vega. And they were found in Family Search connected to another daughter, Lenore. And so only thing I did at this point, because the parents don't have any dates, so you can't really tell much, is I went and clicked on Lenore to see she was born like 8 years later. Where was she born? I can't remember right now where it was. It said she was born, but it was the same place that Maria was born. And this probably came from Numident also. And so since they both said these were their parents, it's fairly logical to assume that they really are sisters. Time-wise, they fit. I could have gone out and done some more research and done a census to double verify it, but to me it seemed good enough that I could just go ahead and finish processing it. But that's essentially what you do. You get like 5 of them a day. Sometimes they're Numidents, sometimes they're censuses or whatever. But it's just a fun little way to do something. It's doing something positive. Doesn't take much time, not really difficult. Okay, so conclusion, there are a lot of programs here at the BYU Family History Technology Lab. Try to add these to your toolkit. They can be things that might help you personally, but they also can be used with the people you work with. Remember, what we want to do is to turn people on to family history, and different folks need different strokes. And so here's a place where you can get some very different programs and things that might turn people on. So, any questions?